Добрий день. Мене звати Dzulynsky. My name is Raissa Dzulynsky. Today, I'll be interviewing Roman Dubczak, our 8th alumni of the Alumni video series. Roman is a managing director and head of global investment banking at CIBC Capital Markets. He was elected as SUSK VP External in August 1985. Thank you for joining us.
Nice to be here, Rai.
So the first question is, where did you go to university and what did you study?
I completed my undergrad at the University of Toronto, BCom, graduated in 1985, and then I did my MBA at York, which is now called Schulich, and U of T used to be called is now called Rotman, and I graduated with my MBA in 1987 from York.
Okay, cool. And what was your involvement in SUSK or your USO, which is what we call our student clubs?
Well, I kind of came up the ranks. During my undergrad, I was a member of the Ukrainian Students Club at the University of Toronto, and it was quite a big club. There was hundreds and hundreds of people back then. And then I joined the executive of SUSK when I was doing my MBA. I was on the executive for a couple of years.
Okay. And so can you elaborate on, what did you do as part of the club? What did U of T or York, what did the clubs, how are they active and how was SUSK active at the time of your involvement?
Yeah, look, the SUSK, which was the U of T student club, was extremely active. It was like the center of our social universe. Like U of T is a very big school. There's not a lot of connectivity. And so coming through as a member of the Ukrainian community in Toronto, along with a lot of my friends who went to U of T, you put some context on it at the time, not a lot of kids who grew up in the Ukrainian community went outside Toronto for university in the early 80s. Like it was kind of not as popular as it is now. There's almost like the inversion of that. So it was a very vibrant community with, like I said, hundreds of kids who were members of it. So it was literally every Thursday, Friday, some sort of pub night or some sort of event. And, my lifelong friendships were formed at SUSK from the Students Club. As it related to SUSK, same thing, but was multiplied across the country. The Students Club at, say, McGill was very strong with kids from Montreal, and U of M was very strong. UBC was quite strong. So, you had these local centers. And what was terrific about it is you'd get to know the students in all these different cities and travel. And, and I know you do this now, but the personal aspect to SUSK was invaluable, not just in terms of meeting friends. Once again, some of my, those friendships have endured over the decades for 30, 35 years. But also taught me a lot of organizational skills that I didn't know I was learning at the time. I only learned that, in retrospect, entering into industry or, some other work-related function where it's like, well, I actually do know how to organize a meeting. I do know how to set an agenda. I do know how to negotiate with different groups of people that I learned, through what seemed to be, mild interactions at that level. It really armed me very, very well. So I look back very fondly in those days.
Oh, that's great. So can you tell us about your current occupation?
Yeah, complicated job, but I'm currently responsible for all of the capital raising, execution, and advice called investment banking at CIBC globally. So I have about 400 investment bankers on my team. We're located, we're based primarily in Canada, but we're growing quite a bit in the US. We've got a large team in New York, a team in Chicago and Milwaukee, Sydney, Australia, Hong Kong, London, and Bogota, Colombia is a recent office that we've opened up. So it's a very, it's exciting, it's busy. It's obviously weird. During the pandemic, you see me in my home office, which is where I've been sitting for 365 days now, because we're on the anniversary of the event of when all this started. But it's very satisfying. It's the complexity is fun. The complexity of the role, the complexity of the work we do for clients, the breadth of the clients that we have, the global aspect of it. It's all terrific. Can't complain.
And Was that always your plan, or how did you find yourself kind of in that role in the industry?
Yeah, no, look, this was not plan A, right? Like, so I'll be perfectly honest. I never really knew what my end goal was when I graduated. Frankly, I didn't know what my end goal was while I was in school, other than to kind of, make it through when I was doing my undergrad. I knew I wanted to do a BCom. I knew I had a business interest and orientation. I was kind of equally balanced on quantitative and qualitative skills, that sort of thing. So going into an MBA was obvious, logical anyways, after my BCom. And back then you didn't need work experience. You could go straight into it. So I was able to do that on an accelerated basis. And literally at the very last minute during doing my MBA at a career day, I ran into a neighbor, the late Jim Shortaki, who was the managing partner for Deloitte. And he asked me what my plans were after my MBA, and he had a couple of loose ideas, and he kind of took me to task and said, you need a profession, you need to do something more structured. Like, he could sort of tell that I needed a little more structure in my life, and he recommended I go into accounting or become a CA or pursue that path in any case. Best advice I ever received, because it was a very good path to go down for me. And like I recommend it for others. You learn a lot about business early on. You get, as they say, live ammunition with clients. You're in front of clients early. It's highly skilled, meaning, the level of complexity to the role is pretty deep. But it gave me a great basis for business, dealing with clients and understanding how balance sheets work and finance works and that sort of thing. And then I quickly learned that that wasn't probably going to be a long-term thing for me, meaning I didn't want to be an auditor or in the assurance business. So I took 2-3 opportunities, largely through people reaching out, headhunters, that sort of thing. And I did a stint in a family office, was my first role for about a year. I spent a couple of years at Ulmer's pension fund on the investment side, which I really enjoyed. And I thought, okay, this buy side or the finance world was very interesting to me. And then I pursued an opportunity to work in corporate finance for a company called Olympia New York Enterprises, which was a large conglomerate at the time in M&A. And I got quite a bit of exposure to M&A on being a buyer. And then unfortunately, their fortunes turned. They went into bankruptcy, or were sliding into bankruptcy. And I was given the really fortunate position for someone at that age to sell a lot of assets and to work through that. And so the exposure through all these different roles, like, it all adds up, right? It's a bit of a mosaic. And I kind of picked up some skills and learned what I did like to do and what I didn't like to do. And, as O&Y slipped into receivership, I obviously needed to find something, more permanent after that. And I had a friend working on the trading desk at Wood Gundy, which is the predecessor firm to CIBC, became CIBC Wood Gundy. And I started on the bond desk in high yield. And I got called, interviewed one week, and I started the next week on the bond desk selling high yield bonds. And ironically enough, some of those were Olympia New York high yield bonds. But I learned a lot, right? It's been quite a journey. That was October 13th, 1992. So we're going to lap 29 years later this year.
Wow, that's very interesting, personally, and I'm sure for others as well. My next question is, how do you think your involvement in your Ukrainian Student Club or SUSK helped you in advancing your career and or personal development? And I understand you touched on this a little bit.
Yeah, no, look, absolutely 100% invaluable. I would not be in the position I'm in today and wouldn't have had those opportunities along the way, because it's a collective path. Had I not had the exposure to the organizational aspects of SUSK and WUSK, to the either conscious or unconscious or subconscious relationships and understanding how things worked in the organizational context, like, what Robert's rules of order were, down to how to run a meeting, how to set an agenda, how to get stuff done versus not get stuff done, what a good time is and when you gotta not have a good time. So that was invaluable to me. I will say that, look, at the time, and you go back to the early 80s, there was like pretty close to no one in this business of Ukrainian descent. So I didn't really have any role models to follow. So as I mentioned, this isn't plan A, it just kind of worked out this way. but in retrospect, that may be helped because I was able to kind of develop a wide variety of skills or knowledge, and kind of use that. And I would say one of the things that helps me today is I have this ingrained sense of organizational skills that came from that, and ingrained discipline versus something that someone said, this is what you're going to do one day. And there's a difference, right? There's a difference in leadership, and there's a difference in quality of organizations. So I would say that is invaluable. And look, I'm very, I think, loyal to the Ukrainian community. The community was very good. It's very good to you. It's very good to me, like in terms of treating youth as an important part of the community in the future, right? And so I try to give back. You know, like I spend a lot of my time now, as you may know, in voluntary philanthropic pursuits, trying to help the community grow and give back. You know, and I'm also very loyal to the city of Toronto, to the province of Ontario. They were very good to my family, to our families, right? So try to give some of that back. And yeah, I think I'm at that stage of my life and career where I think about that. You know, you're on a different trajectory, and you and your friends are going a different way, but it's something that's important, that, you know, you're going to be a success. And just remember, not the obvious stuff, it's the less obvious stuff that's really important to your success. Because a lot of people take credit for your success along the way. It's those that don't take credit for it, you know, kind of really deserve it.
So I'm going to bring us back a little bit. Not a scripted question, but previous in a conversation, you had mentioned, I'm going to butcher exactly what it was, but going to protest at an MP. One of our previous alumni video series interviewees, Marta the Chalk, mentioned that she was also involved in this. Yeah. You're nodding your head. I'm wondering if you could share about what happened there.
Yeah,
and what you
that
learned.
Was that was great, and I to this day can't believe someone entrusted us to do it. There was a period in the like 85, 87 period where there was a royal commission launched under Justice Deschênes investigating the presence of war criminals in Canada. And, you know, this kind of taught me and a lot of the people in the community about, like, you need to advocate on your own behalf. And, you know, a lot of the rhetoric was uneducated about the role of Ukrainians, and painted the Ukrainian community with a fairly broad brush. And look, and we're not relitigating the facts. Like, there are some facts that are, you know, that probably were true, but like not a broad brush on the Ukrainian community. And so under the auspices of the Ukrainian Canadian Civil Liberties Association, led by the late Mr. John Gregorovich, you know, we came up with a plan to get our message across to members of parliament, clearly like in Ottawa, about, like, this is what a Ukrainian looks like today, right? This is who you're talking about. So you can't portray all Ukrainians as being, you know what they're being portrayed at, and to put like a modern faces to who we are. Very proud of our heritage, and trying to be very constructive as it relates to the discussion. Simple but important, right? Because you need to kind of shape opinion and be part of the narrative. And so we were given a fairly large sum of money to organize a weeks-long visit to Ottawa, and we ended up organizing, like, got appointments with, I'm off the top of my head, about 200 members of parliament over the course of a week. And there was a group of 20 to 30 of us who camped out at the Lord Elgin Hotel in downtown Ottawa. We got rooms, we got computers. Back then we had Apple Mac, you know, the MacBook, not a MacBook, geez, that's more like the square thing with a printer. We kept running out of ink, and we put it all together and sent out letters and had a phone bank going, and had a very detailed schedule of a team of 3 people from different parts of Canada of different genders that went out, and they all had 10 visits a day. And like I said, I think we hit over 200, pretty sure we hit over 200 members of parliament. And it was unbelievable. Look, you can imagine, it's kind of scary, but the members of parliament wanted to see us. you learn so much just about how this all works, like how it all works until you're part of it. And when we look back at it, like, man, that was really interesting. That was a lot. We obviously had a really good time socially doing it. And we just learned a lot. It made me feel like I really, all of us, I'm speaking on behalf of others, that I have a say, I have a stake in all of this. And so I'm forever grateful to this could only come together in the community, right? The community that was supporting that cause and that issue. And so it's something that, Marta was part of it, Christian Kuchak, a whole bunch of people that, you're gonna interview and meet, like some great leaders in the community who really benefited from that. We had a good time.
That sounds incredible. Sounds difficult, but a cool opportunity and something that you definitely learned from.
Mm-hmm.
So last question. Do you have any tips for current students? And these tips can be related to Ukrainian Student Club involvement, SUSK, Ukrainian community, or just general career tips, or all of the above.
Well, look, I would say use it as a bit of a warm up for when you graduate. And the things I said, organizing meetings, don't think of it as a hassle. Think of it as like, look, I'm doing this voluntarily now, and I can probably make a mistake versus when I get a job and someone's paying me for it. And if I don't do a good job, I'm not going to have that job, or repercussions. Like, this is a free run for you, and you can only get that through being organized in SUSK or USK or in in SUM or ODUM or in PLAST, like other organizations where you have it's an unbelievable benefit that's being conferred upon you. You just have to realize that, like, people pay thousands of dollars for courses and experiences and other things, and you're sort of being handed that, by virtue of the fact that people came to Canada hundreds of years ago and established the Ukrainian community, and your grandparents came, and your and parents came, and others, and this is what they wanted to see, and this is the best leverage that they could possibly imagine in terms of their children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, doing well in the community. And it's there. You just have to kind of, you only see it in retrospect. So thank you for asking me the question, so I could actually tell you this, that is very meaningful and very valuable and worth pursuing.
In terms of kind of practicing skills that'll go into career, I've been on the board now for 4 years, and I'm now starting to see that as I'm going to start my professional career and have done a few summer internships. So I'm sure you have more experience in seeing the benefits, but I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Well, look, and even this sort of thing, right? It's, you're doing it voluntarily, you're doing it on your own time. And by the time you have to do this in a work setting, you'll have done it a few times, right? You'll have organized it. So that's great. And it's free.
Exactly. So дуже дякую. It was great to hear from you. And I'm sure others will enjoy hearing about you and your experience as well. Slava Ukraini. Героям слава.
Героям слава. And thank you. I appreciate being asked to do this. So take care. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.